I'm gonna give you the 6 best exercises for wrestling and combat sports, and we're gonna start right. So what do wrestlers need when we're talking about their overall strength training? This is an interesting question. We covered this in a recent video where we went deep into how we look through the different sports and the lenses. And it's no different when we're talking about wrestling. When we set up our app, Peak Strength, available at peakstrength.app, we went through building the programs off of the lenses specifically for wrestling. So if you went in and you picked up, I want a free week of wrestling-based training, I want to try that, then I'm going to sign up for the program. That entire program and periodization is based off of how we establish our programming here at Garage Strength. What we like to do is go, all right, they're gonna need things like blast impulse, power endurance, and that's gonna take us into absolute strength. They need blast impulse. They have to produce a large amount of force in a very short period of time. This happens regularly throughout a wrestling match. They also need power endurance. So if we have wrestlers or if we have combat athletes that can train regularly and they can get to a max of 100%, and then they're doing things for a long extended period of time, let's say fast sled pulls and sled pushes, and they can uphold 80 to 90% of their max over that extended period, that leads to greater power endurance. If I'm wrestling somebody or fighting somebody and I can hold 90% 7 minutes into the match, I'm gonna dominate over them because of my power endurance. So when we're talking about absolute strength, we have to look at things like a back squat, a zombie squat, a single leg squat, a bench press, a pull up, rope climb. All of these exercises help build brute strength, help build that absolute strength, which also transfers over to mat strength. If we're thinking about the supporting roles also, using plyometrics, using exercises that will improve grip strength, that all factors into absolute strength. Moving heavy weight and moving heavy weight fast. So the first thing that we're gonna do, one of the best exercises, this is really interesting. We're gonna go over a little progression. So we call this a whiz jump, okay? Here, back foot's up, and we go, and we're gonna do those mini hurdles. Now the second part of this is that this would be called a skater squat, okay? So now, where we're gonna get into is we're gonna do something that's a little bit of a combo. We're gonna call this the Gwiz Skater Squat into single leg balance. And what this does is it exposes some problems that we might have from side to side if we have one leg that's stronger than another. It's gonna help us with stability. It's gonna help us be a little bit more mobile. It's gonna help us with that dynamic trunk control and to be more reactive so that we have that blast impulse. So watch this. This is a movement that you can do at the end of a wrestling practice when you're fatigued or on your athlete day, okay? So we're gonna go here and I'm gonna show you how I like to warm up because I'm a little stiff. It's morning, I haven't really done anything yet other than the sled pulls, okay? So I'm here, right? I'm gonna go out, touch, come back up, okay? Touch, drive back up. And now I'm starting to wake up that hip and that quad here, boom, over, boom, boom. Ideally, I won't have that little hiccup. So I'm gonna show this again. I wanna think drive right out of that bottom position. Drive from that deep position right into the jumps. Think about hitting like a low leg, single leg shot, something where we're gonna be changing the levels. That's a big factor here with wrestling. And also, wrestlers oftentimes or fighters will be in a position where that leg is up in the air and they need to be explosive. That's why this exercise is so phenomenal, is that it mimics some of those precarious positions we might be in while trying to be explosive. So I'm gonna do 3 squats into the jumps. Hopefully I can execute this a little better. 1, 2, 3, oh no, oh. Okay, second time, I still stutter step. So let's move this in and we're gonna execute one more time to improve that. All right, so this is the third time through. Here, got that quad stretch. The other thing is too, is having that upright position. 1, 2, 3, boom, boom, boom. Okay, so I move that, hit that a little bit better. And then as I build up and warm up and get through the actual workout, I can start to separate that to be a little bit more explosive. And if I go to my right side, I'm gonna be able to feel different positions. And then in turn, when we get into a wrestling match or a fighting match, whatever that is that we're training for, now, because we're training unilaterally, we're gonna have better positions from both sides. I would say do this for 5 sets on each leg. So you go 3 squats, 3 jumps, 3 squats, 3 jumps. That's 1 set, 5 times through. Okay, so one of the absolute best exercises for wrestling, and I would argue if I was stuck on a deserted island and I had to pick 2, this would be one of them. The rope climb. Now, there's a couple main factors here. When we're wrestling or when we're fighting, it's really, really good to get heavy on someone's head. It's also nice to be explosive in your lats. Your lats tend to be slow twitch, okay? So if we can learn how to accelerate through the full range of motion and be explosive with that, now if we wanna hit a knee pick or an ankle pick or be heavy on the head, or if we need arm control or wrist control, there's no better exercise than a rope climb. So there's a couple big factors here. We use a 1.75 inch rope, okay? Not a 2 inch, a 1.75 inch. I would recommend you can get a 2 inch rope. The big factor here is that it helps with wrist control. It also mimics what you're gonna be doing when you're getting heavy on the head. There's a couple big factors here, and I'm gonna demonstrate a rope climb as well as I possibly can, weighing 240 pounds and being fat and old. And what we're gonna do is look at how explosive you have to be. And then when I come down, I'm gonna give you a couple alternatives if you don't have access to a rope climb. And I'm even gonna give you a little bit of a trick of what you can use if you wanna train your abs even more while you're doing that rope climb. All right, so here goes nothing. So what we like to do is we might put on a 5-7 minute timer. Let's say you're a collegiate wrestler. You put on a 7-minute timer. 3 minutes, you go as many as you can. Then you can rest for a minute. 2 minutes, as many as you can, rest for a minute. 2 minutes, as many as you can, you rest for a minute. You can get to 15 or 20 rope climbs in that time frame. That's how you develop mat strength. The other big factor, our grip, okay? If we can train our grip to be explosive, each time I'm grabbing, I'm recruiting a ton of high threshold motor units. It's the same thing, like I mentioned earlier, our lats are slower twitch. If we're accelerating through this position, this is gonna help us be more explosive. If I wanna improve my dynamic trunk control, I'm gonna share this information here. One of the best things that you can do, okay, is we can start in this position here and get a rope climb going and then hold our feet with our toes up. That's gonna force our trunk to be sturdy and stable without swaying anywhere. Now it's even more focused on our lats, it's more focused on our grip strength, and our abs are controlling it. Our abs are providing that stability. If you don't have access to a rope, you can do sled pulls with a rope, which we use a 2 inch rope for that. You can put a gi over top of a pull-up bar and do pull-ups that way. You can do fat grip pull-ups. Anything like that that's gonna help you be more explosive and work on that grip. I've even had some athletes do high ring pull-ups or do explosive pull-ups as well. So you can get around if you don't have access to that rope climb. Another big factor that we like to do too is to start from the butt, okay? So if you start with the butt and you have your legs out, that's also gonna help train your trunk, and it's gonna make that rope climb, you know, now it goes from being, that's about 17 feet up top. It goes from about, you know, a 12-foot climb down to a 17-foot climb. So a couple of big factors, but the rope climb is one of the best exercises that you can use as a combat athlete. So that next key exercise, as I fall over, is going to be a single leg squat. Now, one of the cool parts behind training with that single leg squat is that if you have a cool bar, like this open face trap bar, you can use this for helping your pulling strength, and you can also put a bar on your back if you struggle with that back loaded position. Now, the sport of wrestling, you get into weird positions, right? And you wanna learn how to change your level and be strong through the various ranges of motion. That's where this single leg squat comes into play. I also recommend heading over to garagestrength.com, pick up a single leg squat stand and pad so that you can train those skater squat jumps and single leg squats. But now, if we can work through this and we get stronger and we start to load up that open face trap bar, or we even use this bar here, and we get to that point where maybe we've got 225 on your back and you're rapidly doing single leg squats. Now, this is gonna help you in that unilateral position. It's gonna help you have better mat strength, and you're gonna be able to react quicker and have that higher level of absolute strength, and that carries over really well to mat strength. I would say do 4 to 6 sets, 4 to 6 reps on each side. And you can even use this if you're training with the contrast method. So we could do heavier pulls here in that single leg position, or heavier squats, right? And then you can drop this, rest about 1.5 to 2 minutes, and do single leg bounds. You can do jump lunges. And if you like this open face trap bar, let us know in the comments down below. Okay, so this next exercise is one of my favorite movements for wrestlers. And there's a reason being is one, we're gonna use a PowerLastic available at garagestrength.com, but two, the big factor here is that when we're using bands and dumbbells, which I'm gonna demonstrate, there's greater co-contractions in the shoulder. If I want my strength to transfer over to the mat, and I want my absolute strength to really be stable, I need to have really good prominent co-contractions in my shoulder. So I want to be squeezing in my upper back, in my rhomboids, in my rear delts. And what I'm going to demonstrate here is I can get on the bench and I'm going to have this wrapped around my back and we're going to do one arm dumbbell presses. Now I'm just demonstrating with the PowerLastic here just so that you can see what's going to happen. It's going to transfer really well to pummeling. Okay, so now I'm going to grab these dumbbells, going to get in position. And what I want to do is I prefer for wrestlers to hold in that locked out position here. So I can do 7 reps here while I'm locked out and I have that nice co-contraction. My upper back is on fire and my triceps. Then I can go here and do the exact same movement. And even if we're talking about finishers, we can do both and then finish for another set of 5 here. But the big factor is that you're gonna learn how to co-contract in those shoulders. You're gonna get really good at pummeling and you're gonna have good strength endurance, which is gonna transfer over to the mat late into the match when you need that strength, especially in overtime. All right, so this next exercise is one of the best movements that wrestlers could use. And I wanna demonstrate a little bit of a sequence here on what can happen when you're wrestling someone, okay? So think about someone's clubbing you on the head. They're super heavy on your head. Or think about you're that wrestler. You tend to be really heavy on the head because it helps you set up a shot. I like to think about Jordan Burroughs just pawing at people's backs, right? At the back of their neck. What happens is that if you're weaker with your trunk control, if you don't have that dynamic trunk control, someone throws a heavy collar tie, you get pulled forward, you react by coming up because you're instinctually reacting to that heavy collar tie, so you come back up. Then when you come back up, now your hips are open, your feet are open, everything's open to be taken advantage of. Somebody hits a blast double and you're done. This exercise, none of you wrestlers want to do this because you don't like lifting weights, because you have massive egos. Sorry, I'm attacking you. Do you feel triggered? But if we can go forward and look at this movement and say, this movement can help me when someone is heavy on my head, or it's gonna help me have that better trunk control. It's gonna help me have better ab strength when I'm actually wrestling. And this movement is called a zombie squat, and I'm gonna demonstrate shortly, but it's gonna force you to be super upright. The way this transfers is that it's gonna help your hips be a little bit more mobile and your back be stronger, and you're gonna be stronger through a full range of motion. Okay, so if we're doing this with things like the skater squat jumps, or if we're doing this with single leg squats, this is a phenomenal way to increase our absolute strength. So here we go. We're gonna get under. I want this sitting on my throat, basically. I'm gonna put my hands out. I'm gonna hold my mic here. Okay, so I'm gonna go 1, 2, down into the bottom, drive up fast. Down into the bottom, drive up fast. It's also an extremely safe movement because if you start to lean forward, you dump the bar, okay? So we can start off light, build up over time. You can do 4 sets and do sets of 7, okay? You could do 5 or 6 sets and do sets of 3 to 4. You can figure this out based off your periodization, or you can use our Peak Strength app where we program zombie squats for combat athletes, for wrestlers. I recommend using this on a regular basis to improve that dynamic trunk control, and it's gonna transfer tremendously to that mat strength. Okay, so the best exercise that you can do to get in shape for wrestling, okay? This is something that I use inside of my programming when I'm working with the South Dakota State Wrestling program, where we'll do long duration periods, we'll do overtime periods in their training. But this specific movement, I actually stole directly from former UFC fighter Travis Vioff. And it's one of those things where he and I have these challenges going back and forth where we'll ride the assault bike for 30 minutes and see how many miles we can get to. 12 miles in 30 minutes, it's pretty tough. But if you can do things like that where you have this long, slow distance, that helps with your overall endurance. Now, this training regimen is arguably the hardest thing to do on an assault bike, and it will get you in shape extremely fast. And I like to do things like, if you can burn this many calories, or if you can go this far in a certain time frame, you become a state champion, you become an All-American, you become an NCAA champion, you become an Olympic champion. You start to use these different things as you know, just bait out in front of the athlete. Now with this, we're gonna do a Tabata, okay? So for 4 minutes, we're gonna do 20 seconds as hard as we can, then we're gonna do 10 seconds rest, and don't cheat the time. 20 seconds as hard as you can go, 10 seconds with a full rest, and then you can go back to 20 seconds, 10 seconds rest, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds rest. You're gonna do that for 4 minutes. Ideally, you can get to the point where you can do 2 or 3 4-minute rounds. So I'm gonna demonstrate that first 20 seconds, show a 10-second break, and then another 20 seconds. And what our goal is gonna be is that we can handle this and sit at around 80 RPMs for 20 seconds straight. And over time, if I can hold close to 80 RPMs over that 4 minutes, I'm gonna be in pretty good shape. Okay, 20 seconds is up. So I'm around 0.1, 0.2 miles. 3, 2, 1, ding, ding. Okay, so I got to 0.4 miles in 2 20-second bursts with 10 seconds rest. Heart rate's through the roof. Ideally, I can hold that tempo for 4 minutes straight. It's gonna help me get in shape as a wrestler or a combat athlete. Wrestlers and fighters hate lifting heavy weights. They hate getting into the weight room, and it's sort of one of those weird dichotomies in my mind. I think a lot of guys, a lot of fighters might look at someone like Houston Alexander and be, oh, well, look at what happened to him. He was too big, he was too bulky, and he gasses out. But that's where we have to factor in how to maintain power endurance, how to maintain that conditioning while we're increasing our blast impulse, while we're increasing our absolute strength. And I believe it's really important to maintain that strength when we're in the ring or when we're on the mat, because it helps with joint integrity and it helps with that mat strength. After training some of the best wrestlers in the world for over a decade, I always go back to using these exercises. And when I go through that lens of we need blast impulse for those scrambles, we need absolute strength to have that really powerful mat strength, we need to train power endurance. That's how we set up all of our combat training, all of our wrestling training inside of our app, Peak Strength. You can get a full week of free training when you head to peakstrength.app. You can download that today and get on those gains to improve your overall strength and power output. The app's personalized to your training level, and it's gonna help you to become a champion. And if you wanna improve your overall knowledge and gains around training, make sure you check out our brand new channel, Peak Strength. Because remember, if you wanna become a champion, you've always gotta cultivate your power. Peace.